Welcome to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms. Things are changing at an increasing pace. And even though a lot of what we do in real estate is truly old school, new technologies are making it easier to get information and make decisions when it comes to investing. Well, today we've got a couple of amazing guests who are going to share with us some new technologies that may create incredible opportunities for real estate investors on the Real Estate Guys radio program.
If you love real estate and have always wanted to own your own business, listen up. The Real Estate Guys and their panel of experts want to teach you how to go full-time fast in the real estate syndication business. These next few years may go down in history as one of the best times ever to acquire investment real estate. There are deals everywhere if you know where to look and how to assemble the resources. The Secrets of Successful Syndication seminar will show you how to make big money doing big deals from a team of experts that have syndicated projects totaling more than $1 billion. Don't wait for someone to give you a raise or create a job for you. Attend the Secrets of Successful Syndication and learn how to build a team, raise capital, find deals, and make full-time money in 6 months or less. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click on events. All the big players use syndication as a way to diversify risk, optimize profits, and earn big money. You can too. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click on events.
Welcome to the Real Estate Guys radio show. This week coming to you from Las Vegas, Nevada. We're at FreedomFest, which happens once a year, and normally we get a chance to interview some pretty outstanding folks. We had so many great interviews this year that we've got 2 weeks worth of episodes for you. Next week, you're going to hear from Steve Forbes, Robert Kiyosaki, FreedomFest founder Mark Skousen, and more. But this week, we're going to blow your mind. I had a chance to sit down with two amazing gentlemen. One who's been on the show several times in the last 15 years and never fails to deliver. And the other, an industry legend that I've seen speak several times, but until now have never had him on the show. Both of these gentlemen follow technology, which you may think has not that much to do with real estate, but as you're going to see by the end of the program, there is a lot of overlap, especially the technologies these two gentlemen are talking about. So while we're not exactly center ice real estate today, I think you'll be able to figure out some absolute synergy between what these gentlemen discuss and where the future of real estate may be headed. And I have to say, as an industry, real estate is pretty slow to respond to technology. Back when I was listing and selling real estate, I remember we had this consultant come in, and this is in the first few years of internet access. We were selling real estate before that, and he was explaining all the promise that technology held for real estate. An example he used, he said, okay, you list a house, and during the entire transaction, the listing period, offers, a contract, closing, how many times do you either write down or enter the address of the house on a form or a file? And if you think about it, the answer was like, well, a couple of hundred. And he said, here's the promise of technology. You should really only have to enter the address a single time. And in fact, as the databases of the cities and counties get updated, you may not even have to enter it the first time. Now, that was a mind-blowing experience for me. And of course, today, while it may not be exactly that way, it is closer than ever to that reality. Today's real estate agents and brokers have access to so much technology, great software programs, mapping programs, pulling up comparative sales at their fingertips, photos of all the properties, customer relationship management software, so many things that seem obvious, but they weren't always that way. And as real estate investors, we often rely on brokers and agents and that level of technology to propel our businesses. And even though there's great software today for property management and syndication, repair and rehab, pro formas, we still have fallen a little bit behind when it comes to technology. And anyone that follows this stuff, sometimes gets all excited about whatever the next cool technology will be, yet there's not always a direct path to real estate. Today, I'm guessing there will be. Our first guest today was originally on our show about 15 years ago. as the CEO of U.S. Global Investors. Frank Holmes purchased an existing business back in 1989 that has grown to be one of the top fund companies, and Frank has an outstanding reputation. I've seen him speak at several conferences where he does a compelling job of painting the picture of where things are and where they may be going. The last time we had Frank on the program was just before the pandemic, and he was flirting with a new technology. He was excited about blockchain and cryptocurrency, but not from the buying and holding and investing side as much as from the technology side. And he started a small company to mine cryptocurrency, specifically Bitcoin. And again, it was just a back burner idea to complement what he was doing at U.S. Global Investors. That company has become Hive Digital Technologies and was the first Bitcoin miner to go public. So we're thrilled to have Frank back on the program. When we come back, you'll meet Frank Holmes on the Real Estate Guys radio program.
Hello, I'm Brian Tracy, and I'm here today with Robert Helms. He's one of the real estate guys, and he always has wonderful ideas to share with you that can improve your life, improve your income, and help you to achieve more than you ever thought possible.
And welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program, now in our 28th year of broadcast. Sitting in the chair across from me, a gentleman who's been on the show 3 times before, the first time 15 years ago. Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys, Mr. Frank Holmes. How are you?
Outstanding, my friend.
So good to see you. Last time you were on the show was right before COVID. And we were talking big picture economics and all the things in the love trade. And you said, I've got this new thing on the side I'm doing. We're mining Bitcoin. And I thought that was fascinating. And let's fast forward now. My goodness, Hive Technologies, tell us what's going on.
Well, Hive was the first public company to mine and go public. And all those gold investors used it as a proxy rather than buying Bitcoin, fearful of being fried by bankmen, would happen with FTX or people like that.
Right.
And I thought, and it's been volatile. It moves with Bitcoin. It has tremendous up and down moves with Bitcoin. What's most important for your listeners is that in that journey, I didn't wait until this year they finally came out with an ETF.
Right.
I have GoAU for my gold quant stock picking for gold stocks. I have Jets, the biggest airline ETF in the world.
Yep.
But I couldn't launch a Bitcoin one in 2017. And that was really the creation of Hive. And that's allowed me to learn about NVIDIA. And so we're a big buyer. We've spent close to $100 million now buying NVIDIA chips. And now we're doing AI. So not only do we mine Bitcoin, and we have the lowest G&A to mine a Bitcoin. We have only 20 employees. We are mining 100 miles south of the Arctic Circle in Sweden.
Wow.
We're geothermal, only green energy. We're in Iceland. And we're right on the border of Maine in New Brunswick, where we have 80 megawatts and a campus of data centers. And then we're downtown Montreal in mining. So we have about 2,500 Bitcoin on the balance sheet, which is worth $140 million. So we will move with the direction of it. But the really exciting part, and I have to learn so much more, is the data center business for AI is much more expensive up front, 10 times the price of everything to get in the game. So we're in the game.
Yeah.
And it's growing and for me, I'm almost 70. So it's forcing my brain cells to learn about building these data centers on calls and going to meet Jensen for the NVIDIA. Michael Dell had a conference here 2 months ago. Our CFO, Darcy DeBarris, is behind me. We were here to meet them and see how we're going to position the company. So I have to stay young at the same time, recognizing that Bitcoin ecosystem is very much like gold. And one of the things that I learned the data center business is the real estate business on a company called Digital Realty.
Wow. Well, we must talk about that.
Digital Realty really helped me understand the data center business. Now, it's a REIT, and it moves with interest rates.
Okay.
But over longer periods of time, it moves to higher highs. It's like over $40 billion market cap.
Yeah.
And its yield is more tied to what the 10-year government bond is.
Okay.
But they're so informative, and they're all over the world of the sheer size of what they're doing in the data center business. And so you do learn it's real estate. And one of the hottest sectors right now are data centers in real estate.
Yeah.
But to be in the data center business, you have to have energy. And so the difference is when you're a Bitcoin miner, you can help communities or help countries, because when everyone turns on their toasters in the morning, with software, we can go from 30 megawatts to 3 in seconds.
Yeah.
Because 30% of all electricity in the world is wasted. There's no battery storage for it. So what do you do? If you have a big capex to build solar panels, etc., what are you going to do with that surplus? You have to find an end user. So Bitcoin mining all of a sudden becomes a user, so you get your money back faster. Now that's Bitcoin mining has this thing called balancing the grid. It's much more helpful in communities, not with HPC. You have to be up 100% of the time. Why? Because it's a medical doctor is doing a procedure on someone using AI. He can't all of a sudden have an electrical shortage problem.
Right.
It's got to be up all the time. Or airplanes flying, military, it needs to have it working all the time. So you see these are the differences when you're building the data center and the demands and recognizing that. So that's what keeps my little brain vibrant.
Well, it's amazing that there's the parallels that you went into this business. And of course, we probably should back up and talk about U.S. global investors. You've been involved with all these different funds in a lot of different industries. You're one of the crypto guys that was a gold guy from way back when and isn't not a gold guy. You see both sides of the coin, if you will, and had that macro view. But then to get down and say, hey, I'm gonna try this. That worked, and now there's all these parallels, and no one can deny that we're going to need more computing power and therefore energy, and it's great to see that you've got that background and you're applying it. But let's paint the big picture. A lot of talk about AI and what's that going to do from not just power consumption, but efficiencies and making life better and all those things. And then you have the real promise of cryptocurrency, which we talked about last time, and now fast forward all these years, it's obvious. People have embraced it, but I still don't think we're at our potential. What do you think about that?
Well, it's a great question, because I thought some people were a little crazy in the Bitcoin ecosystem saying Bitcoin at $1 million in the next couple of years. And I know about Metcalfe's law, and I know about the adoption process, and that's really fast, and can AI really do that? But here's what happened. 18 months ago, a guy, a really smart coder, figures a way to connect a Satoshi to a piece of art, like an NFT.
Yeah.
So what is a Satoshi? Well, for the listeners, 1 Bitcoin equals 100 million Satoshis.
Yeah.
So you can buy fractions of shares in Apple, or you can buy at Robinhood. Most of the big brokerage firms do it now, give you fractions. So you can buy fractions of a Bitcoin and accumulate till you finally get a whole Bitcoin. So those Satoshis, 100 million, at a penny, 100 million pennies, that is $1 million Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's still so far away, because a Satoshi right now is 0.00003.
Right.
We got offered for some of our Satoshis $10.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. What you ask why?
Yeah.
It's like art. I can go and get a picture. If you have a picture of you walking down the beach with your daughter who's 10 years old, and I can find it at that hour, I can find when that Bitcoin was produced, and I can attach that picture and digitize it to that Satoshi.
Wow.
So it only cost you $10, and now your piece of art, which you have on the wall at home, but emotionally it's your daughter.
Yeah.
What's $10?
Right. Nothing.
Right. So that's a lot more than a penny.
A lot more than 0.0003.
Yes. So they're called unique Satoshis. And so as people go back and look at when something big happened in someone's life, and they want to digitize it, they're going to be able to do that. Since now 2009, we do know that Bitcoin mined the original blocks. They were they were so valuable now. They're worth a lot more, like an Andy Warhol piece of art.
Wow. Well, this is interesting because one of the promises of Bitcoin is there's only 21 million and they're all the same. But who would have thought that, depending on when they were mined, because that's happening all the time, right this minute, Hive is mining Bitcoin, right? Happening all the time. These Satoshis are being created. Who would have thought that the moment in time that they were would have any meaning beyond the obvious?
Exactly.
Wow.
And so the Bitcoin network, built by the people for the people. Think of Bitcoin, a $2 trillion world business, has 18,000, they call nodes, monitoring the whole ecosystem. There's 195 countries, 195 central banks, but there's 18,000 plus nodes.
Right.
This is something really big and profound that's all over the world. And all of a sudden now we earn a lot of money when they start sending a piece of art. Everyone wanted the Bored Apes. So all of a sudden you have an ape that goes on there, or some picture.
Yep.
Maybe it's Donald Trump dancing with Biden. You know, I don't know. Someone's got this epic picture and they want to digitize it, and it goes around. It's really, really quite remarkable, and it's going to grow. That's what I see. But there's no CEO for Bitcoin. There is no funding, and it's this $1 trillion business. So something is significant here that's happening, and it's going to lend itself to Web3. So I remain really quite bullish about seeing it, but it's going through the same attack that when the internet first came out, they said it won't be around for long, etc. But what for your listeners is really important to realize in the history, and my speech was in the history. This is a FreedomFest conference. So I explained about common law, started in 1215, and we jump all the way to 1776 when America turned around and said, we're going to now fight again against the British monarchy for our common law. This is our private property. This is our rights.
Right.
And you're not going to enlist us to go fight your wars. We'll make that determination. And so our common law created capitalism. It allowed it to flourish because it has private property rights. What the research has shown is that human rights are connected to private property rights. And the stock market evolved most significantly in America because it's deemed as a private property, a shareholder right. Now the socialists come along with stakeholder rights to keep diluting your property rights. I'm trying to say it's more encompassing, etc. And it's interesting to watch that journey. But let's talk about Bitcoin. In 1991, two guys were from Berkeley, I think working for Bell Labs, created blockchain. You know what blockchain was for? Timestamping like you think in the brokerage business when you bought and sold a stock.
Yeah.
You had to timestamp it, the broker, when that trade took place from compliance point of view. Well, they did a digital timestamp for movement of money, but it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden in 99 comes along Napster, front page of Time. What was Napster about? Peer-to-peer.
Sharing files, peer-to-peer.
Sharing files.
Music, right?
So music industry attacks Napster, just like the banks attack Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And then we see 2 years later, DARPA creates what's called SHA-256 encryption.
Yeah.
The 64 digits. Well, some guy brilliantly, just as Obama became the president, launches, they say Satoshi is the person behind it, launches Bitcoin. And it's interesting to see how that adoption has taken place, but it's layers. It's not one piece of technology. It is all of a sudden an aha moment. And that's explained by the complex adaptive system.
Yeah.
And I just feel thrilled that I'm part of that ecosystem of the data centers, explaining the story how it relates to gold, and doing this sort of educational part. And what we've been able to do in places like Montreal is take a building of 40,000 square feet, mine 2 Bitcoin today. We're doing 4 a day before the halving, 2 a day. And that energy gets transferred to heat a building 5 times bigger.
Wow.
That saves that building $300,000 a year heating bill. Same electron.
Yeah.
So I feel so cool that I'm involved with that with engineers. Like they figure it out for me. But the ideal of recycling and our vision for northern Sweden are greenhouses. So we take the heat, and all of a sudden, you won't have to get tomatoes from Italy or Spain. You'll be able to grow them 100 miles south of the Arctic Circle.
Fascinating. This is one of the answers to the folks that say, well, it takes so much energy to mine a Bitcoin, which you know, but here's a great productive use of that. And this is what happens when great minds start coming together, right? Hey, let's transition over to now the data center side, because that is a huge need. You see it coming. You're already in that business in a way. Where do you think the opportunity goes from here with the data centers?
Well, the big players and big funds now are banking, the hyperscalers are called. And there is going after Bitcoin miners to repurpose them because they are mining, basically, they have energy.
Yeah.
And if you have that source of energy, it's faster and easier to take your existing footprint and build above that shell. As you know from real estate, if you have a box of 100,000 square feet that was a warehouse,
Yep.
You could tear it down, but that whole cement infrastructure, the permitting process, without starting from day one, is much faster.
Yes.
So I see that happening. I see that companies like Hive are deeply undervalued relative to what are just the pure hyperscaler data centers. I saw that CoreWeave made a bid to try to take over Core Scientific. It couldn't happen because they wanted the energy, so they partnered, and they're going to help them build what they need for it. So I think it's a very strong growth business. In Canada, the pension, like the Texas Pension Group out of Canada, they bought a Dallas company for $6 billion along with Brookfield for the data center business. So it's a very big and significant business around the world, and the faster companies embrace it, and countries in particular with good thought leadership, it'll move much faster, their economy.
Hey, Frank, let's talk about gold, because you've been a gold guy for a long time and you've got a great fund and understand that. And now we kind of sputtered along there, and then this year, gold price is up. How do you view that? Is that just because the dollar's weak, or is there more to that story?
No, what's interesting is the dollar's been strong on a relative basis. I think that the destruction of fiat of other countries is just much faster than America.
Yeah.
And we're so critical in this country and so tough on our politicians regarding this, relative to other places when you travel around the world. And I think that gold is deeply undervalued for a host of reasons. And we hear about banks being charged and their traders found for manipulating, spoofing the market, manipulating it. But, they can only do that so long. Gold is sort of peaked out at over 100 million ounces of new gold a year coming out in the marketplace. But the world's population continues to grow. Central banks continue to see that adoption, that they've got to get back into gold. So, and I also think that the BRICS trying to take on the US dollar, all it's done is really hurt the liquidity of euro.
Yeah.
It hasn't hurt the US dollar.
No.
Go to China. When I first went to China and started the first China Region Opportunity Fund, my American Express and my MasterCard and my Visa was all working there.
Yeah.
Today, not so. You have to upload your money into a WePay, and that's how you have to buy things. They don't want cash.
Yeah.
So one of my analysts, just before COVID went over, and he forgot his toothbrush and his shaving stuff, and no one would take an American credit card or cash. So it was sort of the hotel just turned around to help them, and that means their currency is non-fungible.
Yeah.
It's non-fungible. So they have a two-tier system. That's why they're anti-Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Because it's non-fungible. So how can they actually tell the world that you have to buy renminbi when immediately the Saudis right now have to convert to US dollars?
Yeah.
They want to buy trucks and trains and automobiles. They have to convert the dollars because the renminbi is useless. So when you look at the trade right now, you can see it's had a bigger impact on the euro's liquidity than it has the dollar. So I love America and stay strong with our country.
The talk for years has been that nations and countries and companies are looking to get out of trade in the US dollars, but anyone that studies the euro dollar knows that it's virtually impossible because so many different enterprises need dollars. So that gives us a certain stability, but at the same time, it's exciting to think about new ways to be able to exchange, the gold backs and digital gold. And then, of course, not just Bitcoin, but the whole blockchain, tremendous change. And yet, as we've seen in your career, you've adapted. I mean, our conversation 15 years ago was completely different than this. We were talking about gold and India and the places that China.
You have a great memory.
But here we are all these years later, and it's been fascinating to watch. So there is also the whole efficiency thing. Just technology makes life better. It makes people more connected. I mean, for all the doom and gloom and ugliness of the shutdown, it let us find new ways to communicate. So I think there's always that. And one of the things I appreciate about you, Frank, is your optimism. Like, you're a guy that just always seems to be in a good mood. You have a lot of great wisdom outside of trading. So share with us some of that awesome frankness, if you will.
There's a great research done by MIT, and it always reminds me of my mother. So the research at MIT was that a person needs 5 pats, they need compliments and encouragement 5 times for every critique. And if you don't have that ratio, that you will create an unhappy family, unhappy community, unhappy team.
Yeah.
It's recognized, it's just statistics and data. My mother used to say that you need 3 pats in the back for every kick in the pants. And if you don't do your homework, you're getting 3 kicks right now. So her wisdom is come back to be statistically validated by MIT.
That's awesome.
And the other one is a Stanford professor on the growth mindset. There's just such compelling research of how you train your brain, like if you're going to be a quarterback, throwing that ball over and over to find something that's positive, find something. And I was at a CEO event, and the speaker said, there's 2 types of CEOs. There's a CEO that criticizes everyone often. Criticize everyone often.
Yeah.
And the other one that compliments everyone often. What kind of CEO are you?
I love that.
And that's the choice.
Yeah.
Right? Compliment and encourage often is really a way I like to define, and it's work, because I live in a critical world.
Right.
Your fun performance, you're buck naked every day in the paper.
Yeah.
How'd you do? Why'd you do? How many stars did you get? What did Morningstar rank you? What did this or Saks rank you? So you have to make sure that you come back to the compliment and encourage often.
Love that. Well, hey, it's been great catching up. Sure appreciate you being back on the program, and we wish you continued success. There's Frank Holmes, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, my friend.
You're tuned to the Real Estate Guys radio program. More when we come back. I'm your host, Robert Helms.
Need help with your real estate investment portfolio? Check out the resources page at realestateguysradio.com.
As real estate investors, it's no secret that the Real Estate Guys love Florida, and the Sunshine State continues to receive more than its fair share of businesses and population relocating from the Northeast, which has created a huge opportunity for real estate investors. So come join me in mid-September for our Jacksonville field trip. On this highly interactive trip, you'll get an up-close, hands-on, personal experience you'd be hard-pressed to find elsewhere. You'll feel the vibrancy of the markets, observe the quality of the infrastructure, and truly get a sense of the demographics. All things you just can't do by simply searching online. Plus, we'll introduce you to our boots-on-the-ground team, and you'll meet some amazing investors from all over. To reserve your spot, go to realestateguysradio.com and click Events, then Live and In-Person Events, where you'll find the Jacksonville field trip. There's a big difference between researching a market from afar and seeing it with your own eyes. So join the Real Estate Guys September 13th to 15th as we explore Jacksonville and some surrounding markets. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click Events, where you'll find the Jacksonville field trip. I look forward to seeing you there.
Hi, I'm Garrett Sutton.
And I'm Ted Sutton.
And we're the father and son legal team at Corporate Direct.
Are your assets protected? We live in a litigious society.
One lawsuit and you could lose everything.
You need the professional and affordable asset protection from Corporate Direct.
And now, on top of protecting your assets, the government has a new disclosure requirement called the Corporate Transparency Act, or CTA.
If you don't file the CTA form on time, the penalties are $10,000 and 2 years in jail.
At Corporate Direct, we can help you get through this new government maze.
We offer a free 15-minute consultation with an incorporating specialist on forming a corporation or LLC.
And we can help with your CTA filings. Remember, the penalties for not filing are steep. We're here at Corporate Direct to help.
To learn more and get connected to Garrett and Ted, send an email to act@realestateguysradio.com. That's act@realestateguysradio.com.
Hi, everyone. This is Jim Rickers, the author of The New Case for Gold, and you're listening to The Real Estate Guys.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program. Thanks for tuning into the show. Hey, if you've ever thought about doing bigger deals using other people's money, raising capital, or investing alongside bigger deals, then join us for the Secrets of Successful Syndication, our 2-day workshop on raising capital and investing in funds. We've been doing it a couple times a year now for more than a decade. And the next one is September 20th and 21st, presented virtually. So you won't have to get on an airplane or get a hotel room, but you'll still have access to an amazing faculty of folks that'll help you determine whether or not syndication is right for you, either on the passive or the active side. Get all the details on the website at realestateguysradio.com under events. Well, great stuff from Frank Holmes. My goodness, I'm inspired every time I get around that man. He's got such a can-do, positive attitude. It's infectious. But he's also put his money and his investors' money where his mouth is, and they're doing extremely well. Hopefully you got a glimpse into some opportunities for real estate investors associated with things like crypto mining, data centers, and the like. Before we get to our next interview, it's time to play Real Estate Trivia, your chance to win a prize by knowing today's real estate trivia question. When you hear the question and think you might know the answer, you're going to send your best guess to trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Trivia@realestateguysradio.com. We'll need your name, the answer to the question, and your physical mailing address, because the first person that gets it right is going to get an awesome book called The Warrior Ethos by Stephen Pressfield. Pressfield is one of my favorite authors, and you'll see why when you read this book. And it can be yours on Real Estate Trivia today. Last week on the program, we were talking about finding cash flow in cheap and cheerful Florida with Gene Gill, and we asked this: name the biggest university in Florida. Lots of folks knew it's the University of Central Florida with over 60,000 students. Here's our real estate trivia question for this week. Frank was talking about data centers. Which country currently has the most data centers? You have all the places out there that host data, and there's a lot of them. One country stands out by a lot. Which country is that? If you think you know or just want to take a guess, send your best guess to trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Give us your name, your guess, and your physical mailing address. The first person that gets it right gets The Warrior Ethos by Stephen Pressfield. That's today's real estate trivia question. We're talking today about technologies that may provide opportunities for real estate investors, and our next guest knows a thing or two about technology. George Gilder is now 84 years old, and he's had an amazing career. He actually spent some time as a speechwriter in the 1960s, writing speeches for Nelson Rockefeller, George Romney, and Richard Nixon. He wrote his first book back in 1966 and has written 20 more books. His most recent is called Life After Capitalism: The Meaning of Wealth, The Future of the Economy, and the Time Theory of Money. And for many years, he's written a newsletter based on technologies and their adaptation into the world. He's been here at FreedomFest for many years, speaking on blockchain, artificial intelligence, and today, a new technology that is going to blow your mind. But not only was he talking about those things, he was talking about them years before other people. George Gilder was the first guy I heard talk about the blockchain nearly 15 years ago. He's the co-founder of the Discovery Institute, a graduate of Harvard University, and today a guy that pays attention to new technologies and what they mean for investors. Can't wait for you to meet George Gilder. today on the Real Estate Guys radio program.
Hi, this is Mauricio Raul, the founder and CEO of Muir Law Group, and you're listening to The Real Estate Guys.
Welcome back to Las Vegas, Nevada. We're at FreedomFest, and a legend has stepped up to the mic. Let's welcome amazing author and investor George Gilder. How are you?
I'm delighted to be here.
You know, it's amazing watching your work. You always seem to be ahead. I remember you're one of the first guys who was talking about blockchain and crypto. Now you're talking about AI. What do you see? How do you watch the world and figure out where the puck's going?
I think that I recognize that wealth is essentially knowledge. You know, Thomas Sowell years ago pointed out that the Neanderthal in his cave had all the physical material resources that we have today.
Right.
The difference between our age and the Stone Age is entirely the spread of and growth of knowledge.
You're as much of a student then as you are a teacher.
I've never been an actual teacher. I actually was at the Kennedy Institute for a couple of years at Harvard, where I kind of pretended to teach. But I'm really an explorer, I think, and a learner. Because if wealth is knowledge, what's economic growth?
Right.
I mean, economic growth is learning. And one of my great breakthroughs early in my career was the discovery of the learning curve.
Yeah.
You know, with every doubling of total units produced, costs drop by between 20 and 30%. That's the learning curve. Prices shouldn't go up. That's the result of distortions in the market and financialization of the economy and all these hypertrophy of finance. All these distortions result in prices going up. But because of the learning curve, which constitutes economic growth, costs drop between 20 and 30% with every doubling of total units. And if wealth is knowledge and growth is learning, what is money?
Right.
Is it a magic wand for politicians to reward their cronies and their constituents and adopt futile and stupid policies like climate change, dismantling of our energy sector? This is real. What money is time. It's tokenized time. And it's what remains scarce when everything else is abundant, even super abundant. You know, a book that I wrote the introduction to just now won the award for the FreedomFest Book of the Year.
Hey, wow.
And it's called Superabundance.
Yeah.
And it's by Marion Tupy and Gail Pooley. And it shows that measured by time, the time price, that how much time a worker has to spend to earn the goods and services that sustain his life, that we're getting just fabulously richer. William Nordhaus of Yale, he's a Nobel laureate, it really invented time prices. And by studying the history of lighting, and he discovered, to his surprise, that all economic data misses all the innovation in lighting. It's now to illuminate a room costs a millionth as much as it did when people used whale oil or kerosene or candles or whatever it is. The lumens per dollar or per minute of labor have just plummeted. And what the Superabundance book shows is that this goes across all resources, that the more people, the more resources. People are minds, not merely mouths. And the image of people as merely mouths consuming resources rather than mines creating new resources is a fundamental misconception that has debilitated all economics for centuries.
Love that. Well, when you talk about money, money is a way to perhaps store some of that value, that time.
Yeah.
And it really changes your thinking about it. You talk a lot about new technologies, and a new technology has the ability to save us this time that you're talking about.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And my new book that I'm working on with the working title of Life After NVIDIA shows that the emergence of graphene. Graphene is a single layer of carbon atoms. You encounter it when you write with a lead pencil, as they call it. What you're really doing is shedding layers of graphene from graphite lead. And graphene has been discovered for years. People thought that a single layer of graphite, which is what graphene is, would be fragile and really unusable. But since then, 5 Nobel Prizes have been awarded for the new science that underlies the fact that graphene is 200 times stronger than steel. It's 1,000 times more conductive than copper. It switches 1,000 times faster than silicon. It switches in the terahertz.
Wow.
It enables a terahertz electronics rather than a gigahertz, which is all our existing computer technology functions in billions of cycles a second. This is trillions of cycles per second. But it's as flexible as rubber. And it is so that now that they've learned how to do wafer scale graphene on silicon carbide, this is a great breakthrough 2 months ago. It will be possible to transform electronics from gigahertz to terahertz. Since graphene is the most heat transmissive material ever discovered, it means that this whole data center era, where people imagine that AI and data centers are a singularity that are going to engorge the whole economy and transcend human minds, and all this is going to be rendered futile by the new graphene economy, where wafer scale electronics, wafers are 12 inches, and today all electronics is based on creating a big wafer full of circuitry and then dicing it, cutting it up into thousands of little slivers of silicon and sending the slivers to the Philippines or elsewhere in Asia, where they get encapsulated in plastic packages with copper leads, and then they get installed on printed circuit boards in Shenzhen and China, and they get incorporated in giant racks and data centers that, if they continue in their current path, will eventually consume about 60% of all the world's energy. And this is the current AI data center technology, and it's going to be overthrown in the next 10 years by a new graphene economy. Wafer scale, so you can have a data center on a wafer that is as flexible as rubber, so it can be incorporated in all sorts of different forms and can allow everyone to have a supercomputer in their pocket, which we already do have compared to earlier supercomputers, but these will be AI computers that we're living in an era of abundance, life after capitalism, as I call it, because it's based not on an economics of scarcity, but an economics of superabundance. And it's moving ahead faster than ever.
Wow. So this is mind-blowing and pretty hot off the presses. I mean,
it is. It's 2 months ago. The great new breakthrough at Georgia Tech was announced in Nature magazine, but graphene was discovered supposedly in 2004. The first Nobels were awarded in 2010 to Geim and Novoselov, two English engineers, physicists. But they used the Scotch tape method of isolating graphene.
Okay.
Scotch tape applied to a block of graphite. And so since then, there have been, for the last 17 years, there have been 40 peer-reviewed papers published every day on graphene and its potentiality. And thousands upon thousands of companies all over the world experimenting with various applications. But until recently, it hasn't been possible really to produce it in volume. And what the Nature paper shows is a path to produce electronics in volume. And another company called Universal Matter can manufacture graphene, usable graphene, from any refuse, any carbon garbage or plastic waste can be converted through this flash joule heating process, they call it, into perfect, really flakes initially of turbostratic graphene, which in turn can be mixed with concrete and reduce the amount of concrete needed to achieve a particular structural role by 35%. And
wow.
This is not theoretical. This is being done by a number of competitive companies around the world, including Universal Matter in Toronto. And it will change, the whole construction industry will be transformed by the transformation of concrete in imparting much greater tensile strength to concrete, which means new architectures become enabled. And you mix it with asphalt, and no potholes in the winter, just parts per million and no potholes. You inject it into a severed spinal cord, and it transmits the signals so perfectly that the spinal cord fuses back together. You can see this with a mouse on YouTube, but the mouse repaired by graphene, I think I can't remember. But anyway, there's a company in Israel called Neurocords that is now relating this technology from mice to men and to our spinal cords, and all in the current tragic situation in Israel, it may be that this Neurocords will be a valuable medical recourse for people with damaged bodies. But it will transform real estate, it will transform medicine, it will transform electronics, and it will open a new path to superabundance. And I tell it all in Life After Capitalism.
All right. Well, this is amazing stuff. You know, if you think about, I remember when they were saying that we'd be out of, gas in the 70s and 80s. And then, but technology keeps getting us more productive. And to your point, thinking, people's ideas, approaching it differently. This is fascinating stuff. So I guess as an investor, George, how do you play something like graphene?
Well, I buy Universal Matter, but really this affects the entire economy. It makes you willing to invest in America still, and invest in Israel. Jim Tour is the great chemist at Rice University who pioneered much of the graphene revolution. And out of his laboratory has emerged some 20 companies, and 18 of them are in Israel. So,
wow.
So you can invest in graphene companies in Israel. But Universal Matter is in Canada. You know, the United States doesn't like startups anymore. The SEC has made it. You got to die. You got to diversity, equity, inclusion on your boards and your processes to go public now. So,
right.
So people don't go public in the United States. So all these companies are in Israel or they're in Canada, of all places. Imagine. I think that the graphene economy is going to redistribute intelligence. So you'll have AI in your pocket rather than AI in some vast data center somewhere. And so it offers all sorts of new opportunities. And I think we're going to figure out how to have IPOs again to invest for the future.
Awesome stuff. Well, we sure appreciate that. And boy, I just am very excited now. I've always been an optimist, but even more so after spending time with you, George.
Well, great.
Thanks for being on the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, George, how do people follow your work?
Gilder Technology Report. You can look up. And Discovery Institute. I run a conference called COSM at Discovery Institute.
More than 30 years you've had Discovery Institute.
Yeah, well, I was a co-founder of Discovery Institute.
Yeah.
And I have 4 newsletters that in my company that Gilder Technology Report, Gilder's Moonshots, which give you a lot of these special opportunities for, and Gilder's Guideposts and all these things that are available across the net and at FreedomFest.
And every year at FreedomFest.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there's Mr. George Gilder, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks again for being on the program.
Thank you so much.
You're tuned to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms.
Live nationwide, you're listening to the Real Estate Guys. Find out more at realestateguysradio.com.
Hey, it's Robert Helms. Thanks so much for listening to the show today. I want to personally invite you to come see an amazing real estate market that combines excellent cash flow, offshore diversification, and what we affectionately call lifestyle investing. Come join me from December 6th to 9th in the beautiful country of Belize. The Real Estate Guys have been bringing investors to Belize for more than 18 years now, and our discovery trip is designed to show you the market like nobody else can. Sure, Belize is breathtakingly beautiful. The people are wonderful. And wait till you taste the food. But the real opportunity is the real estate investment potential. There's all types of opportunity in Belize when it comes to real estate investing, including both long and short-term rentals, commercial and retail triple net properties, business opportunities, land acquisition, development, agriculture, and more. And as the only country in Latin America with English as its official language, it's easy to understand the law, property rights are strong, and contracts are in English. And in Ambergris Caye, the top tourist market, a unique situation exists where demand for rentals continues to outstrip supply, creating a compelling environment for investors. So come see for yourself. Join me December 6th through 9th in Ambergris Caye, Belize, as we study the market, learn about the sustainable drivers, and tour lots of beautiful real estate. And like all of our field trips, there are no properties for sale during the weekend. Rather, you'll meet lots of local providers that will help educate you about the market so that you can follow up with them after the trip if the market is interesting to you. You've heard about Belize on the Real Estate Guys for all these years. Now come see what all the excitement is about. Plus, we'll have lots of time over meals and activities to talk about all things real estate. To get the details, go to the website at realestateguysradio.com and click on Events, where you'll find the Belize Discovery Trip. Once you register, you'll get information about our group hotel rates, as well as travel details. So join me in Belize, December 6th through 9th. It's a beautiful country with lots of amazing possibilities, and the only thing missing is you. Go to realestateguysradio.com under Events, and I look forward to seeing you in beautiful Belize. As I speak, inflation is robbing you at a rate north of 10%. Last year, the number one zip code that Mid-South homebuyers offered income property to Real Estate Guys listeners in appreciated by 21%. To harness that spread and protect and grow your wealth in the current economic storm, you need the 2 decades of experience in renovation and management that Mid-South homebuyers brings to their investors. Every home Mid-South offers you will have brand new components, a new 30-year roof, and a high-quality renter, all in a price range under $150,000. Their empathetic property managers will use your ROI as their North Star, while the lack of repairs on their totally renovated properties contributes to their almost 4-year average renter stay and 99% occupancy rate. Learn about their lifetime occupancy guarantee and total 1-year maintenance guarantee by emailing midsouth@realestateguysradio.com. That's midsouth@realestateguysradio.com. You'll be glad you did.
Hey, it's Ken McElroy. I listen to the Real Estate Guys, and so should you.
And welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program. So glad you've tuned into the show today and hopefully had your mind blown. Hey, speaking of mind-blowing experiences, right around the corner, it is the Limitless Expo, number 3, put on by our good friends Ken McElroy and Tarl Yarber. It happens in Dallas, Texas at the end of August, and there are over 50 speakers and 2,000 attendees so far. If you're not signed up, then come on out and see Brandon Turner, Robert Kiyosaki, Pace Morby, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and yours truly. To get your tickets, just go to limitlessexpo.com and use the code HELMS10 to save 10%. That's limitlessexpo.com. Well, my goodness, what a joy to get around George Gilder. He's been studying and predicting and sharing these kinds of ideas for years, and the first few times I saw him speak, I was just enamored of his depth of knowledge on different topics, and I was thrilled that he instantly said yes to an invitation to be on the show. 84 years young and still going strong. But if graphene wasn't on your radar, I sure hope it is now. And if you're really into this stuff, you ought to consider signing up for his newsletter. Or just joining us next year at FreedomFest, where you can meet George and hear what's on his mind at that time. By the way, on next week's show, we'll announce all the details for next year's FreedomFest with founder and promoter Mark Skousen. But I hope today you got a glimpse into the way that some incredibly smart people pay attention to technology. And then if we can take that to the next level and say, what does that mean for real estate? Is there an opportunity to be in the data center business? Or is perhaps graphene going to take that over? And where are those opportunities? And these are just a couple of technologies. As you look across the horizon and see the world change, there's a lot of change in construction. That's going to have effect on real estate, obviously. So the idea isn't to get overwhelmed or become a technology expert, but to at least pay attention. Speaking of paying attention, we're about to open up registration for the 23rd Annual Investors Summit at Sea. We've got an incredible lineup planned for you. We're going to be departing from Miami, Florida, and visiting beautiful parts of the world on a luxury cruise ship. You can get signed up on the advance notice list and be among the first to get registered for the event if you go to investorssummitatsea.com. That's investorssummitatsea.com. Hey, no market spotlight this week or next week will return following our FreedomFest episodes. Big thanks to Frank Holmes and George Gilder for sharing their time, talent, and inspiration with us today. Next week, from Las Vegas, Nevada, we'll have Spike Cohen, Robert Kiyosaki, Steve Forbes, and Mark Skousen. Until then, go out and make some equity happen.
This episode of the Real Estate Guys radio show is brought to you by Paradigm Life. Powerful cash management strategies using life insurance. Learn more at beyourbank.com. Mid-South Home Buyers. Low-cost, turnkey cash flow properties in Memphis, Tennessee. Corporate Direct. Asset protection strategies for real estate investors from attorney and rich dad advisor Garrett Sutton.
Find these and other great companies under the Resources tab at realestateguysradio.com. To learn how you can expose your product or service to the Real Estate Guys audience, call 888-489-7723 extension 4. That's 888-489-7723 extension 4. Or use the feedback page at realestateguysradio.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week right here on the Real Estate Guys Radio Show.